Yo, what is up guys, your boy IzuKage here with a new what if, and this what if is what if Naruto had time skip. So in this, he's going to be his reincarnation and have the same backstory as one of my other series, what if Eren was Hit's reincarnation. And of course, comment down below which one of Hit's abilities you would like to see in the future. So without any further ado, let's get right into the what if.
Talk to me nice, look, dirty, big body Benz, I got you. Scoop on the gun, get in like a Mac. I can't fuck with these hoes, these bitches is true. I'm married to bitches, got niggas attack.
So with Naruto in this, he's been running around doing the same pranks as Canon, but this time he's messed with the wrong people. Two Chunins who's frankly had enough of Naruto and his pranks. In the dead of night, Naruto ran away after throwing paint on them and couldn't contain his laughter. So he stopped on a roof of a building, started holding his side, but those same Chunins were right on his tail, but Naruto was unaware. He started clapping his face, trying to get out all the laughter when he heard a voice say, "Hey look, it's that kid." And Naruto turned around and sees both of them still covered in white paint chasing after him, and he started running. So Naruto had gone through this dozens of times, so he knows a lot of hiding spots, and he jumps down into an alley and hides into a small crack in a wall where only a kid could fit. After waiting a few minutes, Naruto could hear the Chunins running overhead, and one said, "Where did he go?" So Naruto stayed there for a few more minutes before stepping out, but he came face to face with both of them. The older one said, "Sorry kid, you aren't hiding from an expert tracking ninja." And he started dragging Naruto into the forest. All the while, the younger Chunin said, Are you sure about this? I thought we were just gonna reprimand him, tell him that that's not a cool thing to do." The older Chunin glared at him and said, "He won't learn his lesson that way. We have to give him some physical punishment," and he cracked his knuckles. The younger Chunin looked at Naruto kicking and punching, trying to get out of his restraints, and felt bad. So they got deep enough into the forest, and the older one threw Naruto against a tree stump. And he said, "We'll leave him here for now. Let's report back to the Hokage, then deal with this runt." The Chunins jumped away and they were going to Hirizen's office to say that there's nothing going on around the village while they were patrolling and that they were going off duty. Back with Naruto, he was squirming trying to get himself free, but soon he got exhausted. And meanwhile, in another universe, a being, Hit the Assassin, is praised in every universe for his power. But with such abilities, you soon find yourself without a worthy opponent. So Hit thought of an idea to enjoy fighting once more. He attained the Dragon Balls and wished for his spirit to be taken to a world where he is needed. And just like that, his body fell over dead and his spirit was transferred to a completely different universe. Not universe 7 or 8, a completely different world, the Narutoverse. While the Chunins were on their way back to teach Naruto a lesson, they saw a bright flash of light, like lightning hitting the earth, where Naruto was. This caught the attention of not only them but some passers-by. The Chunins quickly made their way over but didn't see Naruto, only the rope they used to tie him up with. The older Chunin turned to the younger one and said, "Did you loosen them or something?" and grabbed the neck of his shirt and twisted it. He said, "No, why would I do that?" And the older Chunin could tell he wasn't lying. They've been teammates for years now. And he angrily grunted and pushed him away. He said, "Find him quick before he goes and tells the Hokage." The younger one trying to be more like his pair, saying, "Like the Hokage would believe him anyways, right?" And that earned him a chuckle, but nothing else. The younger Chunin saw the leaves of a bush shaking unnaturally since there was no wind, and he went to check on it, but out came a little rabbit, and he bent down and said, "Oh, what are you doing out here, little guy?" But from above, Naruto was watching, and he jumped down and kicked the guy in the ground. The Chunin got up and said, "Ha, found you." But when he looked at Naruto, he looked completely different. Not physically, but his demeanor was different. He was less jumpy and hyperactive and more calm and collected. Naruto put his hands into his pockets and said, "You still sure you want to attack me?" And the Chunin said, "Ah, shut up," and took out a kunai and ran at Naruto. But right in front of his eyes, Naruto vanished from his vision and reappeared behind him, kicking him, making him faceplant into the ground. The older one heard all the commotion and said out the younger one's name but got no response. He began walking over and sees him lying on the ground, but when he got closer, he saw a kunai stabbed into his back. The Chunin got worked up and started stumbling back saying, "Show yourself." So Naruto did, and he appeared a few feet in front of the Chunin, and the man said, "What? There's no way a kid like you could take down a Chunin. Go play in the sand and stay out of ninja's business." And the man threw a kunai at Naruto, but it went right through him. A bead of sweat ran down the Chunin's face and he said, "What the hell? Is that the power of the demon or some genjutsu?" The man put his hands together and said, "Release," but nothing happened. Naruto looked at him and said, "For the crimes of intended murder, I sentence you to death." And he drew his hand back and thrusted it forward, sending a small gust of wind shooting through his chest. And his chest began caving in. The man strained for air but collapsed on the ground, dead. And Naruto simply walked away. So we switched perspectives to Hiruzen. When those Chunins came to him, they were acting a bit strange. So he used the crystal ball to see where they were going, and everything I just explained, he saw what happened. And Hiruzen is baffled by what he just saw. Naruto's skills are incredible. He would continue watching him. So Naruto, he goes home and goes to bed almost immediately. But while sleeping, Naruto woke up in a strange place, and he thought, was this a dream? He began walking around, but the corridors seemed endless, and for some reason there was water on the ground, like everywhere. Then Naruto came to a massive room, with walls too high for him to see the ceiling, and only torches illuminating the floor, but that's when he saw in front of him a massive cage, and to him it looked empty. So Naruto began looking around and saw a person meditating in the corner of the room, and he was confused. This person had a strange look to him. First off, he had purple skin and he was floating. But Naruto approached this man, and before he could even greet himself, the man with his eyes closed said, "So, your name is Naruto Uzumaki. You live quite a difficult life. I can tell why Shenron sent me here." Naruto was confused and said, "How do you know my name and who's Shenron?" The man said, "I've had some time to go over your memories, Naruto, and back there you looked like you were in a bit of a pickle, so I helped you out." Naruto looked down to his hands and said, "So that's how I was able to do all those cool stuff." He nodded and said, "Well, just me being here gives you my personality and mindset, but my abilities don't come so easily. I've had 3,000 years to master them. Remember I said Hit was renowned around the different universes because he's way older than 1,000 and had more time to fight different people and of course win. So Hit said to Naruto, I'll teach you one of my moves, the rest you have to figure out on your own. So Hit explains the concept of time skip. It took Naruto a while to wrap his head around it, but now that he's more like Hit himself, he's better at learning and adapting to new information. So after that dump of information, Naruto said, I'm starting to get it. So you store time to create a separate space, a sort of parallel universe. And Hit folded his arms and said, yeah, you're catching on pretty quick, kid. So think fast. And Hit appeared in front of Naruto and punched him in the nose, and Naruto fell to the ground groaning in pain, saying, oh, I wasn't ready. Hit said, get up, and Naruto, still holding his bleeding nose, got up, and Hit said, think fast, and punched Naruto in the stomach, but he wasn't there, he was behind Hit. And Hit smirked and said, you're catching on. And Naruto said, I have to when my teacher is a maniac. Hit said, just remember you have a long way to go, and he punched towards Naruto, using the same technique that he did earlier to kill the Chunin, and Naruto grabbed his stomach in pain and then woke up from his mindscape. Naruto was unharmed but a bit shaken up. So all throughout the day, Naruto decided to practice his time skip abilities. All the while, Hiruzen is watching Naruto appearing and disappearing randomly, and he's fascinated by this. What jutsu can this even be? And it makes him immediately think of Flying Raijin. So could Naruto have a more advanced version of that technique? And if that's the case, also being a Jinchuriki will be an invaluable asset to the Leaf. Naruto would be insanely OP. So Hiruzen sent an Anbu to fetch Naruto to ask him a few questions. The Anbu appeared as Naruto was taking a lunch break. He was having some ramen, and said, "Lord Hokage requests your presence." And Naruto was wondering what Lord Third even wanted with him, so he finished his cup ramen and followed the Anbu back to his office. There, Hiruzen sent all his personal Anbu members outside to, stand guard. And he began pacing around his office and said, "Naruto, have you been experiencing anything different lately? Maybe some sort of ability?" And Naruto was confused how Lord Third would ever know about that and said, "No." And he raised an eyebrow saying, "Really?" So he showed Naruto an image of the two dead Chunin and said, "Have you ever seen these two before?" And Naruto remained composed and with a straight face said, "Never in my life." Hiruzen sat back in his chair and said, "Well, I got reports of villagers seeing you walking out of the forest where those two were found, so I just wanted to question you to make them happy, but trust me, you're not in any trouble. Anyways, how have you been, Naruto?" And Naruto, for the following questions, he just answers shortly and brief, like good, alright, okay. He doesn't go in depth in anything, and soon Hiruzen just let him go back home. So right now, Naruto is 6, so 2 years later at 8 years old is when he first enters the academy. Naruto walks in the class, with the drip. He got some, the same color scheme that Hit has going on. The black jacket with a high collar, matching blue pants with purple accents, and everyone in class is surprised with Naruto's change. He seems like a whole different person, really. So Naruto went to sit by a window at the back of the class, and he's just there waiting. Meanwhile, Ino and Sakura and some other girls in the class couldn't take their eyes off Sasuke-kun, their one and only. Earlier that day, Sakura and Ino made a bento box for him and couldn't wait to give him at lunch. But soon Iruka comes into class, and of course he introduces himself as their new teacher and can't wait to see their progress throughout the year. And their first step towards that is a quick test outside, and everyone was excited. They finally get to do real ninja tricks and jutsus and have actual tools, because for years they've been using paper ninja stars. So they rushed outside, leaving Sasuke, Naruto, Iruka, and Shikamaru behind, who slowly followed them. So once everyone was outside, Iruka started explaining everything they needed to do. First, an accuracy test, and Iruka handed out to everyone kunais and had them line up shoulder to shoulder and had targets in front of each of them. And on 3, they should throw it at the center of it. And Iruka said 3, and everyone did. Shikamaru, Sasuke, and Ino were the closest to the bullseye, while Naruto actually hit it. And seeing this, again his classmates were surprised. Is this even Naruto? The troublemaker? Like, no way. I mean, they haven't seen him for 2 years, but can someone change this much in that amount of time? Meanwhile, Sakura was staring daggers at Naruto. She's thinking, why is he trying so hard to be cool? He'll never be like my Sasuke-kun. So Iruka collects all the ninja tools and puts the targets away, then draws a large circle into the ground and said, "Your next test will be sparring. Anyone who steps out of this circle will automatically lose, but we're going until the other person submits or I think they've gone far enough." So Iruka starts looking over his register with all the names and starts drawing lines to each people pinning them against each other. Then Iruka announced the first spar, Shikamaru versus Shino, which as per usual Shikamaru forfeits because it would be too much of a drag. Next is Naruto Uzumaki versus Sasuke Uchiha. While walking up there, all of Sasuke's fangirls were cheering his name, and Sasuke wasn't his usual emo self because the Uchiha massacre hasn't happened yet, so he was waving to all the fangirls, and this made their hearts almost beat out of their chest and faint. So Sasuke stood across from Naruto, and as Iruka said begin, he ran at him. Naruto just stood there with his hands in his pockets, and using just his physical abilities alone, he dodged all of Sasuke's punches, but one of them were going to land, and Naruto grabbed his fist and started twisting his entire arm until he screamed out, and Naruto let go. Naruto still had an emotionless expression, and Sasuke was getting angry. He slowly did hand signs and thought, I can finally use the jutsu that big brother Itachi showed me. He said fire style, fireball jutsu. Sasuke shot out a massive fireball at Naruto, but Naruto time skipped a very small amount to the left of the fireball, dodging it, which had Sasuke and the other students shocked. Naruto said, you know Sasuke, with Itachi as your brother, I thought you would be a decent fight, but you don't even have your Sharingan. And Naruto ran at Sasuke quickly and kicked him in the chest, sending him out of the ring. Immediately Sakura ran over to help Sasuke while Ino stared in awe of Naruto. Such strength, but she was brought out of her daze when Sakura shouted for Ino to help her to take, Sasuke to the office because he's too heavy. So Ino quickly ran over to help Sakura, and while taking him, Sakura began berating Naruto with insults, calling him a nobody and that he's just trying to be cool like Sasuke, something he'll never be able to do. But Naruto just stood there, took it, and walked off. And while on their way to the infirmary, Sasuke said, let me go, and he pushed the two of them off and said, I can walk myself. Sakura ran up to him again and said, if there's anything I can do for you, Sasuke, just tell me. And he said, just leave me alone, and started walking to the infirmary, holding his chest in pain. Naruto and the rest of the class were given some lunchtime, which Naruto spent outside by himself. In class, Ino went to sit down next to Sakura because, they're basically best friends, but she put down some scrolls saying Ino is the reason that Sasuke is treating her this way, and she doesn't want to be her friend anymore, and Ino was offended. She said, like anyone would want to be friends with someone with a forehead as big as yours, and she stormed off. The entire classroom was like, damn! And Sakura felt embarrassed and covered her head on the desk. Ino found her way outside with a bento box that she was going to give Sasuke, but decided to eat it herself. And while outside, she saw Naruto sitting on a log in some shade. And that fight earlier made her want to, get to know Naruto more. She felt as if she didn't even know him. She thought she did, but that fight completely proved every assumption she made of him wrong. And she didn't hold the same prejudice as some others, since Inoichi sees the role of Jinchuriki as something to be praised because life as one is extremely difficult already. So Ino walked up to Naruto and said, why are you out here by yourself? As she sat down next to him, Naruto shrugged his shoulders and said it's a peaceful place to meditate. And Ino in her head is like, meditate? What the heck? But she's like, oh, cool, I guess. And she starts eating. Ino realized Naruto wasn't eating anything and said, do you want any food? I've got plenty. And Naruto just shook his head no and closed his eyes to start meditating. Meanwhile, Ino just ate in silence for the rest of lunch. So, Iruka began calling everyone into class after a few minutes, and Ino nudged Naruto that they need to both go inside. So they do, and as the years goes on, this would be a sort of daily routine for the two of them. After the Uchiha massacre, Sasuke became more distant and not even giving his fangirls a glance, and Sakura was not happy, blaming his sudden change in behavior on Naruto and Ino. Why? Well, Sakura doesn't have a clear reason, she just acts out of emotion most of the time. But apart from that, during the 5-year gap, Naruto did acquire a new ability from all of his training, and it's your guys' job to choose it, because that is where I'm going to be leaving this one off. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end of the video. If you liked it, like, and if you like my content in general, subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next What If.